Have you ever noticed how often you introduce yourself with a label? Your job, your past, your mistakes, your achievements. But before all of that, before the stories and the roles, who are you really? Imagine for a moment setting every name you carry gently down on the ground, and just sitting with what remains. In Buddhism, there is a quiet but radical idea that the self we defend, decorate, and worry about is not a solid thing. It is more like a river than a statue, always moving, always changing. Yet we suffer because we try to freeze it. We cling to an image of who we think we are, or who we think we must be, and when life shifts, as it always does, that image cracks. And in those cracks, we feel fear, confusion, and sometimes deep loneliness. But what if your identity is not a prison, but a doorway? What if you are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived? Buddhist reflections invite us to soften our grip on the self. Not to erase who we are, but to stop wounding ourselves with rigid definitions. When you loosen the story of me, something spacious appears. There is room to breathe, room to change, room to forgive yourself for not being the same person you were yesterday. This is not about becoming nothing. It is about becoming free. Free from the pressure to perform a version of yourself that no longer fits. Free from the fear of losing an identity that was never permanent to begin with. In that freedom, compassion naturally grows. First for yourself, and then for everyone else who is also trying to figure out who they are in a world that never stops changing. Most of us grow up believing that identity is something solid, like a core that never changes. We say, "This is who I am," as if we are pointing to a fixed object inside ourselves. But when you look closely, your sense of self is more like a process than a possession. It is shaped by experiences, relationships, moods, and moments. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person you are today. And the person you are today will not be the same one you meet tomorrow. Yet we often suffer because we try to hold our identity still, as if freezing it could make us feel safe. In Buddhist thought, this movement is not a problem to solve but a truth to understand. You are not a single thing, you are a flow of causes and conditions. Thoughts arise, feelings shift, roles change, and none of them stay forever. When you see identity as a process, you stop demanding consistency from something that is naturally changing. You become less afraid of growth and less ashamed of transformation. There is great comfort in this. You do not have to defend an image of yourself at all costs. You can let yourself evolve. When identity is understood as movement, life becomes less about protecting who you were and more about gently meeting who you are right now, with curiosity instead of fear. In Buddhism, there is a teaching called anatta, often translated as no, self, and it can sound frightening at first. People hear it and think it means they do not exist. But that is not what it points to. It means that there is no permanent, unchanging core inside you that you can hold on to. What you call I is actually a collection of experiences, sensations in the body, feelings in the heart, thoughts in the mind, and habits shaped by the past. None of these stay the same from moment to moment. When you really see this, something softens. You stop carrying your labels like armor. You are not only your job, your family role, your success, your failure, or your trauma. Those are parts of your story, but they are not your essence. The idea of no self frees you from shrinking yourself into a single definition. Instead of asking, "Who am I supposed to be?" you begin to ask, "What is happening right now?" Awareness replaces rigid identity. And in that awareness there is a surprising sense of lightness. You can meet life directly, without constantly protecting an image of yourself. You become more open, more flexible, and more compassionate toward your own changing nature. In letting go of a fixed self, you do not disappear. You actually become more alive, more present, and more real in each moment. Clinging to identity feels natural, because it gives us a sense of stability in an unstable world. We hold tightly to ideas like, "This is who I am," or "This is who I must be," hoping they will protect us from uncertainty. But in Buddhist reflection, this clinging is one of the main roots of suffering. When we attach to a fixed image of ourselves, we start measuring every experience against it. If life supports that image, we feel safe. If it challenges it, we feel threatened. This is why change can hurt so much. Not only because circumstances shift, but because our identity is questioned. A loss, a failure, a breakup, or even success can shake the story we tell about ourselves. And when the story cracks, we feel pain, shame, anger, or fear. We are not just grieving what happened, we are grieving who we thought we were. Clinging also narrows our compassion. When we defend an identity, we become less open to others, and to ourselves. We judge our own thoughts and emotions, instead of listening to them. We resist growth, because it would mean letting go of an old version of ourselves. When you begin to notice this clinging, gently, without blame, you start to loosen it. And as the grip softens, so does the suffering. You make space for life to move again. There are moments when your sense of self feels shaky, unclear, or even broken. Maybe a role you relied on disappears, a relationship ends, or a dream no longer fits. In those moments, it is easy to turn against yourself and think something is wrong with you. But from a Buddhist perspective, feeling lost is not a failure. It is a natural part of waking up to change. This is where compassion becomes essential. Not the kind you offer others easily, but the kind you offer inwardly, when you are confused, tired, or afraid. Instead of forcing yourself to have answers, you learn to sit with the questions. You let yourself be tender with your own uncertainty. When identity feels lost, the instinct is to rush to rebuild it. To grab a new label, a new role, a new story. But sometimes the most healing thing is to pause, to rest in not knowing. To say, "It's okay that I don't understand myself right now." That softness creates safety inside you. In Buddhism, compassion is not about fixing yourself. It is about meeting yourself. You hold your own heart the way you would hold a crying child, without judgment or pressure. And in that gentle holding, something begins to settle. Not because you found a new identity, but because you stopped fighting the space where identity fell away. Beyond all the stories you tell about yourself, there is something quietly present that does not need a name. Before you think, "I am this," or "I am not that," there is simple awareness. The part of you that notices thoughts, feelings, and sensations without being any of them. In Buddhism, this is where real peace begins, not in defining who you are, but in recognizing what is aware. When you rest in awareness, you stop chasing identity like a destination. You are no longer trying to arrive at a final version of yourself. You are simply here, breathing, sensing, listening, and in that simplicity the mind relaxes. You are not performing yourself. You are experiencing life directly. This does not mean you lose your personality or your humanity. It means you stop confusing your roles with your being. You can still be a student, a parent, a dreamer, a healer. But you are no longer trapped inside those words. You can move in and out of them lightly. In awareness, there is a quiet dignity. You do not need to prove who you are. You do not need to explain yourself. You just are.